Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. In last lesson we mentioned some of the conditions relating to buying and selling, and we said that there are essentially 6 pillars of any transaction. Arkan sitta. Can anybody remember what those are? Those arkan, those pillars. So first of all we said the buyer and the seller, al-bai' wal-mushtari. Okay, those are the muta'aqidain. That's one. Secondly, third and fourth is the yes, al-bida'a al-qima. So it's the actual item of commodity. What am I buying? What am I selling? Okay, what am I exchanging? And lastly, the actual wordings, okay? As-sigha, al-ijab wal-qabul, okay? So we spoke about the commodity last time, okay? We said that the commodity is, has to be tahir, it has to be mamluk, it has to be owned, and so on, all right? It has to be, so we said there's a few things that we have to mention about the commodity. And now we're going to mention what is the conditions in regards to the actual, the person who is committing and who is doing this buying and selling. Okay, so the buyer and the seller, they have to have conditions as well. So what are the conditions for the buyer and seller? Let me just So, tell me, what are the conditions?
For the seller?
The seller or the buyer, because they're either one or two.
For the seller to be specific that he is selling the product.
No, so here the condition on the seller. Which seller, which person, and what kind of qualities that the person have to be. It's like, when we say salah, tajibu salah ala Muslim, aqil, baligh, etc. Okay, so we're going to say, now for somebody to sell, for their sale, their contract to be sahih, to be correct, what are the conditions?
To own it.
No, that's the commodity we said. Yeah, the commodity has to be owned. What about the person himself?
It should not be forced to sell. Not forced to sell.
Yes, but that's more related to, we're looking at the person's qualities.
Must be trustworthy.
So you can't buy from somebody who's not trustworthy?
They know that come from him and belongs the items. Yeah?
He must own the product.
So no, because there's a good point, Jazakallah khair. So the trustworthy person, which in the past they used to call somebody either as adil, or the opposite is fasiq. Somebody who is fasiq, meaning that he is not trustworthy. But they didn't stipulate this as a condition. Why? Because end of the day, when you are buying from somebody, the foundation, the principle is that this person, even now when you go to buy from any shop, or in this market stalls, you can't assume that this person has stolen the item, or he has, as he's selling it, we are assuming that he is owning it. And if he doesn't own it, this is another problem, we deal with it later. So al-asl أنه البائع يملك بضاعته. We're not going to come and say to him, you don't own this. So they didn't put this condition because otherwise, practically, you're not going to be able to buy anything, because how are you going to ask about this person? Is he a adil? Is he fasiq? There's lots of concerns. So this is not fasiq. But does the buyer or seller have to be Muslim? No. Okay, does the buyer or seller have to be male? No. So it can be male or female. Does the buyer or seller have to be aqil?
Yes.
Meaning that he has sound mind?
Yes.
Yes. So one of the conditions, it must have sound aql. Because if a person doesn't have a sound mind, meaning that he is not aware And he's
Not
either
conscious,
mentally
Not conscious,
disabled, or he is insane, or he has some sort of illness, mental illness, which prevents him from knowing. So he might sell his car, which is worth £2,000. He might sell it for £50 because he doesn't know, and he's not aware of the. So he must have aql, okay, both ways, the buyer or the seller. What about baligh? Does he have to be baligh? Does he have to be past adolescence?
No.
Why not?
Yes.
Okay, so we have yes and no.
It must be mature, I think.
Okay, mature. So that's a third one.
Happy, yeah.
What's mature? Mature you mean baligh?
Yeah, baligh, yeah.
Okay, so baligh is different from
Yeah.
mature. What are we going to say? Obviously, there's different. We're not here. We're talking in the Shafi'i madhab. We cannot go into differences of opinion of the other madhab. But generally, when we look at this transaction has to be binding, صح? Meaning that it has to be mulzima. Now, if a child, generally, there are two types of children. One child might be has the ability to distinguish, and they call it tamiz, al-mumayyiz. Now, if you had a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, even sometimes now you can try it with the 4-year-old. You say to them, "Shall I give you, give you £1 or 30p?" They will take the 30p because 30 is bigger than 1. Yeah. So for them, they don't know how to estimate. So these children definitely not in the. Then they said, for any aqd now, for this aqd to be able for us to say it is binding, the person has to have complete authority in making the transaction. And here the Shafi'i ulama said that the level where we can say that the person has the complete responsibility is bulugh. Because until a person reaches bulugh, we can't say that they have the complete authority. Yani it's like al-bulugh alama ala al-ahliyah, that he is ready to deal. It's almost like a natural step in which we say that the child now is ready to deal with these matters. Because anything less than this, the child is in need of a wali, is in need of somebody who has to determine his own decisions. So if he cannot make decisions on other matters, then how can we allow his buying and selling to become enforced?
We have now children who's about 16, 15 years in my country. They selling, they buying, then...
No, so this is 15, 16 is baligh. يعني baligh is when بعد, sometimes baligh might be 12, 13.
Yeah, because we see now, for example, even in TV,
Yeah.
we have many people are as a young,
Yes. So here, here obviously a lot. Again, were you here last week?
No.
No. So last week we were talking about one of the main important principles in the whole concept of the Sharia is to avoid disputes. اجتناب يعني الخلافات. And when you have a child that's maybe 10 or 11, yeah, and they buy, so they go to a shop, they're 11-year-old, and maybe they buy, I don't know, buy something for £50 or whatever. And then they go home, and then the father comes back and says, "Well, why did you sell to my son this item? I don't know, you sold him a mobile or whatever. I gave him the money to go and buy something else, he's buying." And there is a potential for dispute because a child might not, we're saying that his maturity to be able to make the decision is going to be linked to al-bulugh. And even then, at bulugh, this is what this is like the criteria, that is the basic criteria. Sometimes a person might reach bulugh, but still they don't have the ability to fully distinguish. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَابْتَلُوا الْيَتَامَ حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغُوا النِّكَاحِ. So here, the yatama, before the orphans, so an orphan is somebody who has lost his father. Okay. Now, when the orphan has lost his father and he's inherited money, he can't use that, and he doesn't have the direct guardianship over the money. So he will have a guardian, maybe his uncle, or his maybe his elder brother, or whatever, who's going to look after the money. And he has to look after the money, and lots of verses in the Quran about al-yatama. But the Quran says when they reach a nikah, which is the bulugh. So nikah here means when they have the ability or the age of being able to get married, okay, and to consummate a marriage, then you should test them. Test what? Test whether they have the ability to understand. فَإِنْ آنَسْتُم مِّنْهُمْ رُشْدًا, if you can feel that they have rushd. So here now they've reached bulugh, but they also have to have rushd. Rushd means that they have the ability to conduct their affairs. They know the matters. Yani. They're not going to be people who are going to waste their money. If you find that they have the rushd, فَادْفَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ أَمْوَالَهُم, then you give them their money. Okay, now they've reached the age where they can. First of all, they have reached bulugh. Secondly, they have the understanding of how to deal. Now give them their money. But if they don't reach the bulugh, don't give them the money, because they will still not have the ability to properly conduct. And probably this might be one of the evidences that is used in this regards. So we have the aql, we have the baligh, okay? And that's very much basic. This is the haddu taklif, al-aql wal-bulugh. But there is also a subcategory which we will talk about it later, but it means that these individuals are not prevented from, and they don't have they call it a restraining order, like a restrictive order. So this is in the istilah of the Sharia, they call this person Shafi'i or mahjur, somebody who has a court order against them which says that they are not allowed to spend. So they are baligh, they are not majnoon, they still have their aql, but they have no real sense of responsibility. And that's why again the Quran says, وَلَا تُؤْتُوا السُّفَهَاءَ أَمْوَالَكُمْ. Do not give the sufaha, these people who are foolish, because they don't know, they will spend their waste money. And sometimes you feel it's like probably sometimes think about these young men who might be from rich families, so their parents are giving them, sometimes you see that they own cars for 100, 200,000, and they're racing with the cars, they don't care, and they're just smashing the cars, and then, well, I'll smash the car, go on. They don't care about their money, they're spending their money their way. This kind of person is a safi. And sometimes this safi might be reach such a situation, a problem, that he is not looking after his money, he's just wasting money. And this kind of person might have a restrictive order against him that he is not allowed to buy and sell. But this is like a more detailed perspective. So those are the basic qualities that we are going to, in terms of the person, the aqd, the one who's going to give the aqd in buying and selling, is that they have a sound mind, and they have the bulugh, which is what we say haddul taklif. And then the last thing which we said, which is the actual wording. Okay, so the wording, which is we say the ijab and the qabul, is that they have to be, the wording has to be clear. Okay, it has to be clear, showing the pleasure. إِنَّمَا الْبَيْعُ عَنْ تَرَاضٍ. The Prophet ﷺ said, buying and selling can only be with pleasure. Okay, like you mentioned just now. So it cannot be somebody who is forced to buy and sell, to sell their item. There has to. How do we know that he's pleased? What he says. Okay, and so the wordings of any sale has to be clear and has to be direct. Okay, and it must be in agreement. So the ijab and the qabul have to be complied. So if I say to you, brother, I sell you 10 apples, and you will say, I accept to buy 5. Okay? Here they said there's no sale here. Because I said 10, you said 5. Yani even it doesn't mean that okay, 10 is more than 5, so therefore you can take 5. No, I said I'm selling you, I've sold you 10 apples. بعتك 10 تفاحات, and he said قبلت 5 تفاحات. There's no sale because I said something, you said something else. Or I said to you, brother, I'm selling you 10 apples, and you say I accept to buy 10 oranges. Okay, so there is no consistency. Okay. So there must be consistency. Again, it must be clear that I'm saying the word sale. Okay, so it has to be like I mentioned last week. The words cannot be ambiguous, and you must clearly indicate that you have accepted.